live.
And we are live.
We're live.
This is episode 17.
17. 17 comes after 16, and the previous was 16, therefore.
Next one will be 18.
Yep. Unless we do something
Nice.
crazy and we just start skipping numbers.
We could do 17.5.
Yeah, we
No.
start.
So what's up, man?
We
How
try to
are
make a system where 17.5 means we're continuing a wave or
you? Right, like part 2.
a crazy system.
It could happen.
We need to
You
have
never know.
documentation with like a map of how to decipher the numbering systems. So what are you up to? What have you been up to? What have you been reading? What have you been seen anything or habits, rituals? What's up?
Yeah, I'm revisiting an old book of mine called Art as Medicine.
Nice.
Got it right here, actually. Do you want me to read a little bit of the...
Yeah,
back
what's
of
it about?
Whenever illness is associated with loss of soul, writes Sean McNiff, the arts emerge spontaneously as remedies, soul medicine. The medicine of the artist, like that of the shaman, arises from his or her relationship to familiars. The themes, methods, and materials that interact with the artist through the creative process. Art as Medicine demonstrates how the imagination heals and renews itself through this natural process. The author describes his pioneering methods of art therapy, including interpretation through performance and storytelling, creative collaboration, and dialoguing with images, and the ways in which they can revitalize both psychotherapy and art itself. Yeah, pretty interesting.
What's always interested me is when making music, if you're doing it from a place, if I'm doing it from a place of purely improvisation and I'm just coming up with melodies and kind of like coming up with words and not thinking about what's the theme I want to do or what's the topic I want to sing about, but if I'm just totally trying to see what comes up, it'll be dude, it's coming from real subconscious, I think. And when people do that, I think it comes from your real subconscious that if we imagine all of us have so much conceptual thinking and all kinds of thinking in our subconscious that we're not aware of, like one could consider that that's building up. And if you don't confront that, or you don't create off of that, or you don't utilize that, maybe there's an effect of having that there, and it could start like draining energy. It could start making you feel misaligned in some way, or
For sure.
Is that some of the does that sort of fit with some of the things they talk about in that book?
Yeah, there's a big chapter on dreams and how to explore dreams and also use dreams to nurture your creative process.
Nice.
That's really, really interesting to me right now. Yeah. I want to get back into lucid dreaming as well, but I'm kind of scared, to be honest. Maybe we can.
When you say get
talk
back,
about that.
Can you explain what get back into would mean for you?
Yeah. So probably more than 5 years ago, I went through a 6-month phase where I worked a lot on dream recall and becoming aware that you're dreaming through recognizing certain patterns and also doing certain tricks to or tools. Repetition,
kind of like there's one where you look at your hands and you try to count or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. Or you try to look at a digital clock, or if you look at words, and then you look away and then look back. Your brain is actually creating all that information in the moment, so it won't be exactly the same. Something will be different. And that's how you notice that you're in the dream, and then. Usually what happens is you get too excited and then you wake up. But if you if you go through that a lot of times, then eventually you can stay in the dream while lucid.
Okay, how much of this how much of this did you actually experience, and how much of
Yeah.
this was you taking on procedures, choices, getting absorbed into the sort of information of lucid dreaming and trying to apply it, and how much of it did you actually experience?
Hmm. I did experience like switching a light, it didn't turn on. I did the hands thing.
Explain the
Um,
hands thing again. You count your fingers?
no, what I did is I just try to look at every detail in the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And in my dream, it like the wrinkles, they would move, they would shift. And then I just noticed that's weird. So I'm dreaming, and so the first time it happened, I was dreaming that I was hanging out with a friend,
Yeah.
and then it kind of clicked,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking, and I just said, "Yo, I'm pretty sure this is a dream of mine. Like you're
Uh-huh.
here, but I want you to know that you are in my dream." And he was like, "What? No, there's no way." And I'm like, "Yes."
He's
and
like, "You're my dream friend too." You're like, "No, you're misunderstanding."
no,
what I'm
no, no,
saying."
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was really funny.
Current- this is a
And
dream.
then it just grew out of like the fact that I was dreaming started becoming more and more aware, more and more real.
Okay.
And so as I was explaining this to him, I was getting hyped. I was getting excited, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Dude, we're in my dream right now." and that's when I kind of like woke up,
Okay.
woke myself up out of the excitement. But
and
that happened probably 3 or 4 other times.
that was gonna be my question. How many
Yeah.
times? How many times did you? How many times did you notice? I mean, not that specifically, but how many times did you successfully become aware that, oh, I'm in a lucid dream? How many times did you lucid dream?
That I recall, about 4 times.
4 times.
And I've
Over the
got
course
them
of?
written down. But it might have happened many other times. It
Yeah.
just didn't remember.
How many? What was the duration, I guess, of the whole period of that those 4 would
Like
have?
6 months. And then
yeah.
I was in acting school, so it was pretty chaotic. And
Yeah.
it was too much, because it also felt like going through theater and acting school, I had a lot on the table at that moment.
Right.
And so I really needed the rest. And instead of
Yeah.
resting at night, I was building castles or like exploring this other world. And then by
You mean those 4 times?
no, I mean those 4 times were instances of lucidity
Got you.
that were like blessings, right? It's random.
Yeah.
But all of the other nights, like trying to make a little ritual before going to bed, like repeating, I will recall my dreams, and
Right.
making some kind of ritual repetition that puts your subconscious mind or
Yeah.
or like it puts you in the mood for something to happen.
Would
and
you say
just
that
trying to write them down as soon as I recall them, as soon as I woke up. And I even got to the point where I stopped using pen and paper, notebook, started using
voice
a
recorder?
voice recorder, because
Nice.
just turning the lights on
Yeah.
and moving a little bit, grabbing the pen, putting myself in a position to start writing,
Gone.
it would make the dream go away faster.
Yeah.
Like anything you do just starts to make the dream.
Man, that
go
happens
away.
with ideas too. If you're just thinking and you're trying to sleep, and you've got some concept, or you're thinking about it, and you've got like 3 parallel kind of channels of thought, and you're like, oh, I think I should write this down because I don't think I'll remember it. You're right. Many times, just the act of so even in not dreams, but dreams are extra elusive. Like, I mean, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe twice a year, I'll know that I was dreaming. Yeah.
Why do you
wanted
think that is, though?
I don't know. Sleep quality. Who knows? My question was, I had another question. how different do you think? So you were talking about kind of developing strategies and ways of prepping your mind and psychology to increase the chances that you would lucid dream.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's separate, or do you think that's separate to, or the same as, say, chaos magic, or just like magic, like setting an intention, setting up activities with the focus of this is going to cause this result, and then
there's a science behind it. There's a really good book about. It's called Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming by Stephen LaVerge. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, but
yeah.
I just want to be clear. I'm no expert in lucid dreaming, and I never got to the. No, I'm not at all. I know. Oh, that was sarcasm. Yo, I never got to the point where I could control my dream, just like imagine anything and it's happening before me.
That would be cool, yeah.
Yeah, I never got to that point.
I think there's a lot of people within the lucid dreaming community. I don't want to say community.
Yeah.
But like people who are talking about it and exploring it online. I think a lot of them are thinking that they experienced something when they didn't. I don't know why. I just feel like there's a lot of all the time I'm in and I can do whatever I want and I can fly around. I don't know why, but so many of those claims, I'm like, really? Did that really happen? I don't know. Do you think that that's totally possible, that you can get so good that every night you just jump you dive in, and you can do whatever you want, sandbox, playground?
Yeah, I do.
You think so, hey?
Yeah, I really think so. And I really think you can do anything you want. And it's a learning process, because at first you're probably going to want to do kind of like crazy stuff, fly around or I don't know. I don't want to bring up examples, but what I actually wanted to do was to do the meditations that I was working on at the moment in my dream.
Nice.
Because a teacher said to me, like, if you can meditate in your dreams, that's like the most powerful type of meditation you can do. And I was like, can I do that? So I was trying to do that, and I never got to do that. And that's why I was like, I do want to get back into it, just so I can achieve that objective. Like, I wanted to be in a dream, become lucid, and then instead of doing all the crazy things you could do in a dream, just do a meditation. And I think that's like, if meditations do clean your subconscious mind, imagine doing that meditation inside your, like, in total double inception. Something like that.
So that brought up three things for me, and I'm gonna see if I can get all three out without losing track of one of them.
Nice.
Okay. One of them is, let me just see if I can list them even. Okay. One of them is wanting to make a comparison of difficulty of practice to reach the goal. The second one is imagining, just wanting to bring up the concept of imagine doing Ikar Das in your mind all night.
Dude.
And what that, like the next day, what that would be like.
What would happen?
Yeah. And what was the third? I already lost the third. Okay, the first one, though.
Let's go with the first one.
I wanted to ask you, just to get a sense of what you feel is the hurdle of getting to a place where you can do that every night. And it's a place where you have total control and you've put in the work and the effort and so on and so forth. Making a comparison to, I'll take a step back. I have a feeling that the people who do Kundalini yoga, right?
Okay.
I do
just
believe
Kundalini yoga or any type of
Kundalini yoga.
Specifically.
There's people who are doing Kundalini yoga.
So just
after a
people
while,
that don't know about it, you're talking about chanting, deep breathing, body movement,
third eye focus, breath work, like very, very specific and directed and not militant, that seems aggressive, but like very dedicated practice.
Yeah.
The idea is that you're raising the serpent energy, the kundalini
Right, in a powerful way.
up the energy systems, and then raising consciousness. And the idea is that the people
and strengthening your nervous system.
Sure, yeah. And the idea is that people who've practiced this, say, for 50 years, 60 years, and they're incredible and they've put in the work, they can spontaneously, say, generate different hormones or substances in their brain. For instance, there's a claim that people can release DMT at will, not at will, but through heavy kundalini practice. So that's something. So would you put them on the same level where it's like, okay, there's this thing that I think is possible, but it would require insane amounts of dedication and time. Like, would you put those on a similar level of dedication to reach, or how do you feel about that? And this is just subjective. It's just, I just want to know how you feel about.
But you're talking about reaching the ideal of the Kundalini yoga practice, which is what you just mentioned, right?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that that's like the ideal that you're trying to reach that, but just that if you've done that would be a sign that
awakening
you are totally in control of whatever, being able to bring forth states and just total control of your nervous system, I guess, and endocrine system. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, endocrine system.
I'm not sure. Yeah, that's getting into some Wim Hof stuff. But do you think those two concepts are?
But Wim Hof is actually drawing from what are they called? Pranayama practices, right? Like old yogic breathing techniques and for example, the Wim Hof breathing ends with a hold on the exhale. Like you exhale and then you hold with the lungs empty.
Correct.
That's a pretty common thing in Kundalini yoga. They've been doing it for a long time. And what am I trying to say? So I guess I will say it's harder to it. Yeah.
Just quickly to insert into this, I do think that his sequence is kind of like a short, like prescribed, like a very compact version. It definitely drawn from places, but it's definitely like a compact, researchable 30 breaths, exhale, whereas I think maybe Kundalini would be like 3 hours of like different sequences of, I don't know, just more like a part of, just like a, but it's true. And I
agree. And
maybe I'm not
generally
understanding.
Kundalini yoga is like you go and take a class with someone or through an online thing. But there's a distinction to be made between Kundalini yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan,
right?
And
we could get into that. But
the real Kundalini yoga, which is just going back to Patanjali and
the Yogi Bhajan stuff is 3HO, right?
Yeah, 3HO and Sikh Dharma, which is like they took in Hindu Sikhism and they made it Western-like.
Right.
But quickly, you were saying something about the what's easier to achieve?
Not easier,
like the lucid dreaming thing?
Just simple question for you. Do you think that they're on a similar amount of effort to reach sort of that ideal? Or do you think one's than the other?
Dude, I think people could lucid dream in a month.
Okay.
If they did the right rituals and tools and they really wanted it. But I don't think you could in a month become a super healthy yogi.
No, yeah. I agree. Yeah. So you think, so it's like massively less arduous to reach that ideal.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. If you have, but that might be a very subjective thing because I might have a tendency to recall dreams easier and an interest in dreams.
Right. The ability to dream even.
And I have a very visual mind.
I think that's something you
So
can
that
practice
helps.
too, and that's something that I've
Yeah.
for years I've wanted to meditate for different reasons, but a main one was to work on and practice imagination and just your ability to focus and to generate imagery and to play with that imagery. And man, if you do that,
I think we touched on this
if you
around episode 10 or something.
probably
like that,
yeah. If you did that for a year and then incorporated the lucid dreaming, bring that in from the side, and then start mixing it up, like yeah, you're in for.
There's a great book about that. It's called the Practice of Natural Light, something like that, by I can't remember, but it's some Buddhist author, Rinpoche, or
Yeah, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche.
I think so.
Dude,
I might be wrong on this.
All
I
of this is
apologize.
making me think of the McKenna quote, like create your own roadshow, and that there's more imagination behind everyone's eyes than has ever been created by people throughout history, all combined. It's like if you work on the ability for your imagination to become more rich and detailed, and you have some sort of conscious control over the direction of that, and you can generate imagery that you would like, and to change it, so on and so forth. And then lucid dreaming and bringing in a sort of a chaos engine, like I'm letting it kind of generate some, and if I can incorporate some, and then choosing how much you want to generate, how much you want to just chaos, and check it out. I mean, that's super interesting to me as well.
Dude, I have sort of I haven't made up my mind around this topic. Just thinking about if you can tap into open consciousness or collective archetypes, and you can access, if there's some things, some techniques, tools that you can do to access that realm of imagination, endless imagination. Does that mean that anyone can be endlessly creative if they can learn to tap into that? Or are you still limited by your history, by all your references? Are you because if creativity and imagination are very related with intelligence, which I think they are, that would mean that you could somehow increase your IQ by maybe a little bit if you learn to expand your imagination, or to tap into that bigger ocean of references that you don't necessarily need to have read about or heard, but maybe they spontaneously happen, and then you have something new that wasn't there before, that's happening from yourself.
As long as you can remember that, see it, and maybe do stuff with it that generates a maximal amount of new concepts. That's interesting, because I've always thought of the idea that when you're thinking of a new idea, you're learning something new, it's only repackaging ideas and concepts you've already had, and that when we think of a new idea or we learn something, it's not that I just said it, I'll repeat it. I guess I'm just repeating myself in a different way. But you're not just absorbing a fact or absorbing a new thing and trying to install it into whatever memory system, whatever synapse or firing pattern or whatever. You are looking into your experience and what you already know and ideas you already have, and going, that's a little bit like this from this, that's a little bit like this from this, it incorporates a little bit from this, and then together, if I add those things up, that makes this new idea about whatever the topic is you're learning. So let's say that if you're exploring a space with new abstract concepts that are generating out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but maybe the Jungians would say out of a collective unconscious base of archetypes and imagery that are ingrained in every human being and timeless.
But it's not an external physical thing that's giving you that information.
Right. Or that's
Well, yeah, you could make the case that it is.
I don't know though.
I agree.
But yeah, so then just to finalize, I guess, the logic that I'm on, or non-logic. than if you are spending a lot of time in that space with that imagery that's new, that you hadn't thought about, or maybe that would then provide you with a larger bank that you could use when you're forming new concepts. So it's adding to your bank that then you can use as you're learning something new. If everything is taking things that you have in your mind, consciously or unconsciously, and combining them in different ways to make new ideas, then it would follow that if you have a larger bank to draw from of images, concepts, so on and so forth, then you literally would be better off and be able to learn concepts faster. And that probably makes no sense, but it's fun to think about.
It is. But it makes sense to me. Just makes me think of, I've been struggling for a while between the idea that is everyone creative, or are only a few selected individuals creative, right? And I know we've talked about this, but just trying to wrap it up by saying that I think this expanded my understanding of the fact that the way I understand creativity is that it's not universal. Not everyone is inherently creative, and that makes other people creative in contrast, right? Like, in order for someone to have a new idea, there has to be an average of not new ideas going on, so that one or some new ideas can emerge and be different. If everyone's having new ideas all the time, there are not really new ideas that are in contrast being valued. Okay, so
But do you think that could be just a result of that which was generated and not the capability of those generating?
Right, exactly. So if everyone, I do think that if everyone practiced or was taught from a very early age to meditate, visualize, practice, imagination, get in touch with your dreams, maybe it would be the case that everyone would be creative. Like, I'm not saying that only a few people have the ability to be creative and others just can't. But I do think it is a fact that most people are not creative by definition. And so it just may only be a result of just the way society thinks about these concepts. Imagination and creativity are not really taught to young children in a massive way. And so I don't know. What do you think about that?
So where you stand now, you're saying that when you say most people aren't creative, you're saying most people aren't creative in their actions and outputs as they currently stand, but you would say that most people are creative in their potential if it was so that they grew up with certain practices and beliefs and resources to maximize the growth, manifestation, and therefore ability of them to execute and generate creative output. So I think that that's true. I think a lot of people I think this has to do with, part of this has to do with the constraints and the benefits of building an ego as you grow up. And that there's a lot of people for which part of their ego and their identity is, I am a creative person. I'm able to generate interesting concepts and make art, or if I'm a painter, I'm a painter. I'm just like those other people, and maybe I'm not as good, but I'm just like as the painters of the past who created these great works, and maybe one day I'll create something like that, or I'm whatever sort of artist you are. And then other people are like, oh, I'm not. Like, I don't have creativity. I like consuming it. I appreciate it, but I'll never make a painting or take a picture or that I think is super creative, or I just don't know how to do it, or I don't think I'm capable, or that's just not me. It's installed within their identity, and I think for those people, that's not going to change, because in order for them to try something that would be considered quote unquote creative, they would have to accept the concept that they're capable of that, and then therefore be creating in some creative way. So I totally agree, and I think the potential is there within everybody. 100%. I think the potential is there within everybody, and that it's I don't know. I think that is so much more maybe I think that's, and now I'm questioning it, but I think that's totally way more an environmental and socially influenced phenomena for people, or phenotype.
Yeah. So are you saying then
are social behaviors phenotypes? They are, right? No?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Or is it
How
just
do you define a phenotype?
I think that's just the expression of the gene as it results in the real world. So like, your genotype, and then the phenotype, if I remember, is like hair color. That would be if it's red, that's the phenotype. I don't know. I'm so out of my. I don't know. Now I don't know what I'm talking about.
So let me finish my thought then.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone's creative in potential. Like, everyone has the potential for creativity, and
yes,
everyone has the.
That's what I was.
But by definition, not everyone can be creative, because creativity has to do with novelty, and so not everything can be new.
It's relative
all the time.
It's relative.
It's relative to what's normal and what's new, what's not not creative is what is already established. So not everyone can come up with a new idea. And also there's potential for creativity, but there's also actual creative achievement. Like, if you ask someone, have you ever made a piece of art? I would say most people would say no. So everyone can make a piece of art, but not everyone chooses to.
In terms of the relativity question, it's you take the person who is considered to, and you even measure or somehow determine this is the least creative person on the planet, and then you put them with a group of chimpanzees or something, and I mean, you know what I mean? They could make a little stick house, or they could, they'll just be way more creative. And I don't know. Now I'm judging creativity by human But it's a great example.
But
it's just the idea is that the least creative person could be the most creative person depending on the background.
Depending on the context.
Yeah, depending on the context. And
nice. I like this new understanding because it depends. It also depends how you define creativity.
Right.
Because if creativity is everyone's potential to have ideas, then everyone's creative because you can have an idea, I guess. But I don't think that's the correct way to define creativity. It has to do with novelty.
Right.
And I think it also has to be useful. Even if it's beauty.
That's where I disagree. That's where I disagree.
Okay. But it has to do with definition. I think you disagree because how you're defining useful. But if useful is someone finds value in it, it's useful for someone. But I'm not talking about design. And maybe useful is not the right word. Because
I put a value judgment on useful to mean it's practically beneficial for
like
in
design.
some sort of consequential way, like it's going to impact more people in some sort of
I think that's closer
way.
to design than art.
Because when you were talking about that, I was thinking of McKenna probably because I brought him up earlier. But like, But I think of him as one of the most creative speakers, at least thinkers. Like he just went off. He just explored.
Yes.
And a lot of it's insane and just conceptual and how far can I take this idea? But that's massively novel and creative. And then
But
when
always
you, and then
finding
when
a
you
crazy
said
way to
right,
yeah.
and then when you said value, I was like, oh, I don't know that I don't know if that's valuable. It's valuable, but then it's valuable to
I mean,
me
I don't.
in terms of inspiration.
Right,
And
you wouldn't listen to him if it wasn't valuable to you.
right. So I was making some sort of weird, pragmatic, consequentialist value judgment on the word.
But I should have said
itself.
it. Yeah, and I do disagree with myself as well by saying it should be useful, because you have to explain what you're meaning by
Useful.
saying creativity should be useful. And then I could make the argument for that case, but I could also destroy it.
Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
how about, and I don't know if I just thought of this and I don't even know if I think it or whatever, but that creating something, if you're creating something with the goal of making it useful, then it's not true art, maybe. And if you make true art from a very deep and genuine place, then the result will always be useful.
Nice.
What do you think about that?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I think anything that moves you
Yeah.
could be art. Anything that is trying to express an emotion or a meaning behind it. Well, no,
I
that's
think
where
I think true. So
yeah.
I think art.
I'm not sure about meaning because
Right. Yeah. Because I think a lot of art comes from a place where it's like you don't know what it is. So it's not a meaning that you. It's not a meaning or necessarily a feeling. It's something within your unconscious and maybe some in your conscious that hasn't been formulated to result in a feeling or a feeling that you can identify. Maybe it's something that you don't know why you feel a certain way, but that the subconscious has even knowledge about something that you don't know, or a feeling of something in your life that you haven't consciously brought to the surface and become aware of. But ideas or concepts that aren't fully, because once something's fully integrated into something coherent and logical, then I think that's when it becomes something available to your conscious mind, because your conscious mind can read that. It knows how to read that. It can read something that's a logical if then thing, and then you can go, oh, this is a new idea. But until then, your conscious isn't aware of it because it doesn't know how to read that. It's the wrong, not English, but it's the wrong language. I'm using that as a metaphor. But it's not packaged in the proper way for your conscious mind to read it, and therefore that's by definition what makes it unconscious. Not by definition, I'm probably using that wrong. But then the idea would be that art is from there. Art comes from that place. And sometimes the magic of art is that when you express it and look at it, maybe something becomes more clear, or maybe that catalyzes the understanding of that unknown. And that would be the most useful thing for everybody.
So does that mean that the viewer validates the art? So what makes art, right? So if because like there could be like I don't know, a tennis ball in a corner of a museum.
Yeah.
And it's called the tennis ball, the red tennis ball.
This is a statement about how children aren't playing outside as much, and that game and play is, and you're like, okay.
Right.
Is it?
And I mean, that would be art because the museum is validating it as art, and people are validating the piece by watching it, contemplating it, talking about it, telling their friends about it. Look at this piece of art. It really moved me because when I was a child, I got hit by a tennis ball, and so my lip was bleeding, and then the red in the tennis ball made me think, and I remembered that, and like you can create a whole story out of someone who just wanted to provoke you, right?
Okay, so maybe this is right on the money of what I don't think I've been able to express, and maybe I'll be able to. I think that is an art, and I've had a feeling or a aversion to something like that, say a tennis ball or something like that, because people are trying to decipher what caused the generation of that imagery, and so they're making up all these things for themselves that, you know, someone could generate something off that would be useful. So then you have to have the argument of like, okay, well then, right, that's still art then, because people are deciphering some sort of usefulness from this,
and it'll
whatever.
end up in a art history book.
But then
it will.
Right, but then I still feel that if it wasn't generated from a place of trying to express the unknown and subconscious, then it's almost like an imposter. It's like it's like,
so you could say it's
the
art,
enterprise,
but it's fake art.
The enterprise of art in my mind is all try to express something I can't fully understand, or it's coming from a subconscious, or maybe I'm just understanding and I'm expressing it. And then when you're interpreting it, you're receiving something that, I don't know, possibly, I don't know, because then people are on different footings, and maybe it's not an unconscious for everybody, and that's just your understanding.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So it's just a feeling then. It's just I just don't think, I think that that's an imposter, because I like to believe that people are creating something from that principle of, this is coming from a true place that I don't know how to express in any other way other than trying to let this flow out, and that in that comes the usefulness of subconscious becoming conscious, and that's how we're generating new understandings individually and hopefully collectively. And that to me is important, putting things, finding truth within that, as opposed to look at this, whatever it is, and generate whatever you want from it, and it doesn't matter if it's the same as other people. It doesn't matter.
So in a way, if people call something art, then it kind of becomes art by people validating it as such.
Right,
but
then
you could
nothing
make
is.
the case that you could make the case that it isn't, because then nothing is.
Yeah,
exactly. But then that would be your opinion.
That would be your opinion, right?
But wait, let's say you're in Renaissance Italy, and you're like Michelangelo is doing his thing, and you come up with the tennis ball thing. No one's gonna. They're like, no one's gonna value it as art.
No.
So also it has to do with society.
Social.
Like
yeah,
it kind of reflects what society values, and
okay,
that makes me so angry.
Hold on.
Just to think. Let me finish this.
Okay.
To think that art used to be about incredible beauty, awe, incredible talent, and technical ability.
Yeah.
It used to be about harmony and all of these attributes of great fine art that I think it has
lots of
been
people
lost in a way.
Right, but lots of people would, like the tennis ball guy would be like, yeah, but that's just an illusion too, and that was just standards that were generating by human minds, and that it's all just social and cult. I'm not giving this guy I'm kind of mocking
we
him.
can call them
Which,
the postmodern artists.
I don't want to straw man
They can do their
this.
thing.
I don't want to straw man this. Okay, so the idea would be that also would be generated standards from what has come out of human consciousness of, this is what we value. And we value beauty, and we've made up beauty, and I don't buy that though. The symmetry in nature, the symmetry, and I mean that's beautiful. I think we're wired to think that that's beautiful, and
But
so
I think that's what makes artists want to create beauty as well, like inspiration from nature.
So I was just gonna say, do you think that say the Renaissance person would look at the ball and go, that's not art, but almost everybody now would look at those Renaissance paintings and go, well, yeah, of course that's art. So it would work backwards but not forwards?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, then
So
doesn't that mean
is
something?
yeah,
If that's the
yeah,
case?
that could be a great argument to dismantle the conceptual
Mm-hmm.
postmodern art.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but then we're not. It's a new time, and
Mm-hmm.
times change, and if that's art right now, then I guess I can't say otherwise.
I think that also makes me want to connect this to something else we were talking about, which was this notion
Yeah.
of if if there's something that you're believing that is, say, a fiction, but it benefits your life, then not believing in it or not going that way would be unwise, or just the idea that it's possible to have a net positive on your life if you're believing something that, say, is not 100% concretely true. We could talk about
Okay.
placebo effect. We could talk about faith
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah. I
that.
was thinking about placebo.
So then the reason I'm connecting this is someone who believes that art is that tennis ball, and then they generate whatever sort of thing within their mind that they feel is
Mm-hmm.
useful. Then for that person it was useful, and therefore it doesn't matter whether or not it's quote unquote art or not. If it's benefiting people, then
Mm-hmm.
that's great, and that the argument of
Right.
whether it's art or not is just sort of
Yeah,
surface
like
and superfluous.
where are we trying to discredit that piece of art? If
Mm-hmm.
someone finds it useful and someone is moved by it,
Yeah, just don't look at it.
yeah, if you don't like it, don't
Yeah.
consume it. Nice, for sure. And I do think that some. I like the fact that you said fiction instead of lie,
Mhm.
because it's not necessarily the same,
People would
right?
correlate them though, but
For sure, for sure. But I think a lie goes directly against a specific truth. It goes has an intention to hide a truth, and a story is not necessarily true,
mhm.
but it's just an invention of your mind to have a belief. Like a
It's not a
belief could be a
deception.
story. It's not a deception, right? It's a construction.
Mhm. Yes, and creative.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
hopefully
stories are necessary
mhm.
for life,
And,
personality.
mhm. And that's where some of the
Yeah.
archetype stuff could come in, where you're drawn
Mm-hmm.
towards those
Yeah.
archetypes.
So
Do you
you,
do
yeah.
you believe that archetypes are fundamental to every human being's consciousness, or that we're just sort of
Mm-hmm.
drawn towards, say, the hero's journey and these characters because
Yeah.
they are an amalgamation and they are an abstraction of things that we find in our lives socially and as we age, or
Mm-hmm.
and get more info about the world, and these things become more of a sort of, yeah, amalgamation and an abstraction of commonalities between phenomena? Or do you think that because there's this notion that these things are like ingrained into our psychology and that it's
And they're
evolution,
universal.
yeah, and that it's like it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what happens in your life, those things will be there,
Right.
and say if you
Yeah.
dream you'll access those archetypes. It's the
Mm-hmm.
collective conscious thing, I guess. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
that was Jung's claim, I think,
Yeah,
that archetypes were in fact universal. And Joseph Campbell explored that idea in a
Eric
similar
Neumann
way
explored that deeply.
deeply.
Yeah,
I
I would
and
say.
I really haven't explored much of him and his work. I have the
Mhm.
consciousness book, but it's hard to get into it.
I'd say
Well, I have
way
found
more
it
than Joseph Campbell,
very
but
complex. Yeah, yeah. And
different,
Campbell
different,
does it
different though.
more in terms of story
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
hero's journey and
Yeah.
writing.
Yes.
So it's more focused on the writing aspect
Narratives.
of yeah, and culture. It's also
Mhm, mhm.
very heavy on um, yeah, like past cultures.
Mhm.
I forget the word for that currently, but
Mhm.
similar to Graham Hancock, kind of like exploring past cultures and history and making links between them. But
I would say that's different, but I get what you're saying. Connecting dots between
archaeology. It's not archaeology. It's
anthropology.
Anthropology. Thank you. Yeah. I guess it has an aspect of anthropology to it. But I just got lost. What? What was the question?
We were talking.
There was a question. There was a specific question that I just forgot.
Are these archetypes ingrained in all of us, like genetically?
So my best guess is just to say that archetypes are in fact universal, but that's just my opinion, choosing to believe in collective unconscious and similarities between everyone's lives. Just you live and you die, and things happen in between that happen to all of us. And it doesn't really matter what language you speak, from what culture you're shaping the world, you're still having those same experiences in your human life, and you're encountering all of these different characters that somehow align to the archetypes everywhere in the world. Like there's exceptions to the archetypes, but everywhere in all cultures you can find the archetype. So I'm just saying that's a weird thing to notice, and people have noticed, and I think that's why people make the claim that archetypes are universal.
Right, but do you think that just saying that these people are from different parts of the world come across these similar characters and storylines, so on and so forth, that doesn't necessarily mean, that doesn't imply collective consciousness in terms of there's some central collective source that people tap, like that's like when I think of collective consciousness, that's what I think of. I think of like, okay, source, it's a claim, like it's a claim that there's like some space or dimension that people draw from, and I don't think that claim that these people experience some commonalities, I think that's just people experiencing commonalities as opposed to drawing from some collective unconscious source. I mean, the thing that I come back to, and we can expand, I mean, this topic can be expanded upon for so long, but just the last thing I wanted to mention on this was, I mean, the sun goes through the hero's journey every single day, and then throughout the year, it goes through another hero's journey. And so separate from some like deep psychological, everyone has this embedded, it's like just to be born and to see the sun go down and come up, you see the hero's journey every day. So it doesn't matter if there's some sort of collective source unconsciousness, just every human is going to confront that no matter what. And that these things are embedded in nature. And so I'm not sure where to go with that, but
so people notice that, and that influences reality, but it's not necessarily like everyone's got a connection to a source space that really actually exists.
Right.
I agree, man, and I would love to explore this from that point, not choosing to believe in collective consciousness, but actually trying to make the case that it's just wishful thinking, and the coincidences lead to people making a correlation or an idea that there is a connection and there's something else. And I think that this ties to the paranormal, like some unexplainable phenomena can only be explained by paranormal or extra metaphysical activity. Right.
It would be fun to explore that concept, even switch sides and play around with the potential for it to be both, or I think it's a very deep and long topic that probably will emerge multiple times.
Yes.
What are some takeaways? I feel like this was a great flow. Great flow this morning.
Let's wrap it up.
I feel. What did we talk about a lot today?
Creativity.
Creativity.
We talked about
that was the main wave.
Ideas.
Yeah, the main
I
wave.
think so.
I'm gonna think about that a lot, and I think when because I've been playing music a lot these days, trying to continue to work on playing acoustically some music that I'd recorded, and I'll continue to try and remember that these came from something that I hadn't quite conceptualized yet, and to try to connect with that original space of generating these things, so that when I'm playing them, feel as if I can capture that generative aspect of it, as opposed to just this is how it goes and remembering it and playing it off memory and that kind of a thing. So I think that's a great space to take.
Yeah, for sure.
Space
And
to
we
take
talked
with
about dreams, which was a surprise because, I mean, I brought it up, but yeah, I think my takeaway is related to dreams and just trying to be conscious that there's a big correlation between dreams, the collective unconscious, as we were talking about, and creativity and art. But now, thinking about the possibility that there's no universal aspect of creativity, no collective unconscious, possibly, then the idea that creativity is a universal thing that people can just tap into if they choose to is even now weaker in my mind.
I don't know though. Now I want a devil's advocate to support it. I think that
now we can go for another 30 minutes.
I think collective unconscious is. I mean, it depends how you define it, and so that's maybe something we could start with.
Yes.
Or find out if both can be true if we change the definition, and then it's like, well, what definition do we, or if we feel the need to define more concretely.
Yeah, and as you said that, I just noticed that I chose to give the words certain definition.
Right.
And then I made the argument without really noticing that I was already putting that charge on or value on the words, on the concepts.
The last thing I'll say is talking about imagination and meditating for developing your ability to be imaginative and generate imagery and stuff like that, and then talking about lucid dreaming and you saying you could do it in a month. It's just another moment where I'm like, well, I want to do that, and then it's like another thing that would take so much dedication and time that you would really have to make a commitment to jump in. But there's so many things like that. There's not enough time. There is enough time. Right. It's another convo. I'm spiraling now. But yeah.
But also just mentioning the value of sleep, of proper sleep and peaceful and white sleep, which is not charged with a lot of activity.
Yeah.
I would say for anyone listening out there, I would recommend you search that way more than searching for lucidity in dreams. It'll bring way more value to your life than building castles.
I need to do that.
Fairy tale world.
That sounds fun though.
Yeah.
Extracurricular activity.
Exactly.
Nice,
right, bro. Nice.
This was great.
Really, really, really appreciate this space.
Thanks for the convo, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Peace out.
Peace.